15 actors who died of AIDS. Between the early 1980s and the start of the new century, AIDS killed more working actors, directors, and stage performers than almost any other single cause in Hollywood and Broadway history, and for most of that time, almost none of them were allowed to say so publicly. Studios and publicists often listed other causes. Some families only learned the full truth after the funeral or years later. These are 15 actors who died from AIDS-related illness, told in the order it happened, from one of the very first deaths the entertainment world quietly noticed, to a Tony winner who was still working steadily nearly 2 decades after the worst of the crisis had passed. 1. Klaus Nomi. Klaus Nomi was a German-born performance artist and countertenor who'd appeared on Saturday Night Live alongside David Bowie in 1979, building a strange, striking cult following in New York's downtown art scene. In his final months, he started wearing tall, stiff collars on stage, quietly covering the lesions creeping up his neck. He died on the 6th of August, 1983, at 39, one of the earliest deaths in entertainment from a disease that, at the time, barely had a name most people recognized. 2. Rock Hudson. 2 years later, Rock Hudson changed everything. One of the biggest leading men in Hollywood history, Hudson had never publicly come out as gay, let alone disclosed an illness. In July 1985, from a hospital in Paris, his team released a statement confirming he had AIDS, becoming the first major American celebrity to do so. He died less than 10 weeks later, on the 2nd of October 1985, at 59. Hudson's disclosure did what almost nothing else in America had managed to that point. It forced a disease dismissed by much of the country as a gay plague onto the front page of every newspaper. His friend and giant co-star Elizabeth Taylor became one of the era's most visible AIDS activists, helping raise millions for research in the years that followed. 3. Robert Tourneaux. The following year, Robert Tourneaux, who had originated the role of cowboy in both the stage and film versions of The Boys in the Band in 1970, died on the 3rd of June, 1986, at 44. His career had all but disappeared after that film. He later said Hollywood's doors had simply closed to him. In his final years, he made headlines fighting eviction from his New York apartment while sick. 4. Robert Drivas. Weeks later, Robert Drivas died on the 29th of June 1986, at 50. Drivas had built a career as both an actor, appearing in Cool Hand Luke, and later as a respected theatre director, winning an Obie Award for directing Bad Habits on Broadway. 5. Charles Ludlam. The next spring, Charles Ludlam, who'd founded the boundary-pushing Ridiculous Theatrical Company in 1967 and spent 2 decades writing and starring in its flamboyant downtown New York plays, was diagnosed in March 1987. He died just 2 months later, on May 28, at 44, from AIDS-related pneumonia. His obituary ran on the front page of the New York Times, and over 1,000 people attended his memorial. 6. Leonard Frey. The following year, Leonard Frey died on the 24th of August 1988 in Manhattan at 49. Frey had earned an Oscar nomination playing Motel the Tailor in Fiddler on the Roof, after first making his name as Harold in the original stage and film versions of The Boys in the Band. 7. Wayland Flowers. Weeks later, Wayland Flowers, who'd built an entire career performing alongside a foul-mouthed puppet named Madame, a fixture on 1970s and 80s, television collapsed on stage in Lake Tahoe after developing an AIDS-related cancer. He died a month after that collapse, on the 11th of October, 1988, at 48. Madame was buried with him. 8. Amanda Blake. The next year, Amanda Blake, who had played Miss Kitty on Gunsmoke for 19 years, one of the most recognizable faces on American television for 2 decades, died on the 16th of August, 1989, at 60, from AIDS-related liver failure. She's believed to have contracted the virus from her last husband, who had died of AIDS-related pneumonia 4 years earlier. Her publicist initially told the press she died of throat cancer. The truth only came out 3 months later, during a dispute over her estate. 9. Ian Charleson. Months later, Ian Charleson, who'd played Olympic runner Eric Liddell in Chariots of Fire Deed on the 6th of January 1990, at 40, 8 weeks before his death, he was still performing the title role in Hamlet at London's National Theatre. A performance fellow actor Ian McKellen said looked like he'd been rehearsing his whole life. Charleson requested, deliberately, that his death be publicly attributed to AIDS, to help publicise the disease, making it the first UK entertainment death openly attributed to it at the time. 10. Brad Davis. The next year, Brad Davis, who'd won a Golden Globe for Midnight Express and had known he was HIV positive since 1985, died on the 8th of September 1991 at 41. He'd kept his diagnosis secret for years, afraid that if word got out, he'd never work again. His wife, Susan Bluestein, later published his private journals, revealing the full story of what he'd hidden. 11. Robert Reed. The following spring, Robert Reed, who'd played Mike Brady, the wholesome patriarch of the Brady Bunch, for 5 seasons, died on the 12th of May 1992 at 59. His death was publicly attributed only to colon cancer at the time. It wasn't until later that his doctor confirmed HIV had been listed among the contributing factors. A detail Reed, who lived his entire life closeted, had chosen to keep from the public himself. 12. Anthony Perkins. Months later, Anthony Perkins Forever, known as Norman Bates in Psychodeed, on the 12th of September 1992, at 60, he'd found out the tabloids knew he was HIV positive before most of the public did, after a 1990 headline outed him. He kept working and kept the diagnosis largely private until the end, releasing a statement before his death asking that people respond to AIDS with compassion rather than judgment. 13. Denholm Elliott. Weeks later, Denholm Elliott, who'd appeared in over 120 films across 6 decades, including 2 Indiana Jones movies as Doctor, Marcus Brodied on the 6th of October 1992, at 70, at his home in Ibiza. He'd been diagnosed with HIV in 1987 and died of AIDS-related tuberculosis. 14. Ray Sharkey. The following year, Ray Sharkey, who'd won a Golden Globe for The Idolmaker and later starred as a mob boss on the CBS series Wise Guided on the 11th of June 1993, at 40, he'd struggled with drug addiction for years and contracted HIV through intravenous drug use. 15. Michael Jeter. A full decade later, Michael Jeter, a Tony winner, who'd gone on to play Edward Delacroix in The Green Mile and a beloved supporting role on the sitcom Evening Shadowdeed on the 30th of March 2003, at 50, Jeter had been open about being HIV positive for years by then and had reportedly been in relatively good health. His partner said the immediate cause was a seizure, though multiple reports at the time listed AIDS-related complications as a contributing factor. 15 lives, spanning 20 years, from a total lack of language for what was happening to a diagnosis most of the public, by the end, understood. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.